Okay, so we've had one Beer Hut beer already, 4%. It got the taste buds going. It's time to get another one on the go. Welcome back to Views on Brews. I am Brendan, and this is Beer Hut's solo series, Simcoe India Pale Ale. It's quite a mouthful. So let me just show you the can there so you can have a quick squiz at it. Basically, this is a front label can, just to distinguish it from the core range, which has wrap labels around it. This is just a sticker label on the front. So the solo series, India Pale Ale, focusing on one hop only, which in this case happens to be one of my favorite hops ever, which is Simcoe. Simcoe's a really amazing hop. It has this sort of citrus, grapefruit, resinous, piney character to it. And it also has this sort of woodsy, sort of earthy, sort of very unique flavor compound to it. There are a few hops out there that are very, very individual. I can think of Nelson Sauvin would be another good variety. Sriracha Ace would be another one that is very unique in that they just have nothing that can match it or nothing that can substitute it identically, whereas a lot of other hops can be substituted or created as a combination of other hops. But Simcoe for me is one of those hops that's just absolutely in a league of its own. What does it say? What does it say on the front of this can here? I'm just trying to read it here because it's in dark print, which is quite... Okay, so hops is Simcoe. So the hops is going to be all the way through the boil. They're probably going to use them in as bittering hops because they're around about 12%, 10, 12, 14%, these Simcoe hops. So they'd be perfect alpha acids for bittering, but also for flavoring in the middle of the boil, and also for late hopping, towards the end of the boil, and even in dry hopping as well. So you're going to get different sort of flavors come through with each of those hopping additions. There's also Sanders yeast from WHC. WHC is the Wicklow Hops Company, and they have their own versions of strains of yeast here in the Republic of Ireland. Sanders is one of them. I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm guessing it's just an IPA sort of neutral yeast. I'm not really sure without looking it up. I might post a little bit up on the screen as we're talking in edits. It's 6% ABV and it's best before January 21. Now, I'm wondering, since both these beers actually were given to me recently by a person who was going up north, and I asked him to purchase me some and bring them back down. I'm wondering, is there a shorter shelf life on these cans than a lot of other breweries that are doing 1 year shelf life on their cans? These are hoppy beers. I think this is brewed fairly recently, but I can't be sure when it was brewed, or can I? Let me just check that. It doesn't say when it was brewed, but I'm guessing there's a 6-month shelf life on this, and these are very fresh cans of beer. And I like that because in this day and age now, we can't just be putting on 12-month shelf life on absolutely every can. They're, in food terms, a best before date is there to protect the consumer. It's always got a few days built into it, although you may find with some of the German supermarkets that we have, like a best before date really means it's best before then, whereas other supermarkets you might get a few extra days on it. Talking about things like chicken and meats and things that perishable and can go off, whereas when we label beer cans with best before dates, what we're really saying is it's freshest before. You could drink this in 2 or 3 years time, it would still be perfectly drinkable. I actually think best before dates should be scrapped on cans of beer, or there should be 2 dates. There should be a best before date, which is probably 3 years, and there should be a freshness date, telling us when beers, you know, when it was brewed, and the best time to drink it, which is probably 0 to 3 months, and the latest time that you should drink it, which is probably 0 to 6 months maximum. Even more so in the hop forward juice bombs, where, you know, you've got a lot of volatile, partly isomerized or not even isomerized hops in the brew, but this one I'm sure is going to have hops all the way through it. But anyway, enough that fluff. Let's get into this beer. Let's have it. Just come off the back of having a nice session IPA there, 4%. So 6%, I should notice this straight away. I actually can see that there's a very similar complexion to the last beer as there is in this, and I wonder, do Beer Hut use a very similar set of base recipes for their beers and then just slightly tweak them for each beer, or is there just totally different recipes for everything? I wish there was more information on this can. If I had to make one suggestion, it does say water, barley, yeast, hops. It gives Simcoe, it gives Sanders as the yeast, so I could go and look those up, but it doesn't say what barley's in here. And I'd love it if all breweries had to label all their ingredients the same way they do in the food industry, which I work in. That way I can have an idea when I pick up this can, if it says wheat, if it says oats, or if it's going to say just barley, it could say what type of malted barley is in it. Then I could make my choice, a better informed choice of the beer that I want. But anyway, this looks very soup-like, sort of a pineapple juice slash orange juice complexion to it. It also has a slightly rocky head of foam, perfectly white foam, but little less stability to it than the last beer. Big bubbles, half a finger of head, although I probably could have got a lot more if I'd have poured it differently. There's a great aroma coming off of this beer, which I'm really excited about. It's nice to have a single hop series of beers where I can just focus in on the hop. And that's really the purpose of a single hopped IPA, is so that you can get, you know, only some hops will be good for that. Simcoe, like I was saying, it's a very unique hop. It'll give you special kinds of flavors all throughout the boil and onto dry hopping if there's dry hopping in this. But let's have a little go. Let's get the aroma first. Let's see what I can get on this. So there's a bit of sweetness on the aroma, which is interesting. Not a huge amount on aroma. Now, I have a bit of a blocked nose. I would say off of this, I'm getting predominantly a bit of herbal aroma, very mildly aromatic herbal aroma. Let me take a bit out. Let's try that again. Very herbal, perhaps very young pine, and very minimal amounts of it on the aroma. That's all I'm getting on the aroma. It's actually just very pleasant, very mild, mellow, and herbal. So that's what I'm getting. Let's have a go. Cheers, Slancha. If you're having a beer along with this video, cheers, and hope you're enjoying what summer sun there is out there now. Ooh. Okay, not what I was expecting, I have to say. So Simcoe is a a very interesting hop depending on when you use it. Now, I've made several beers with Simcoe in it, and I've used mainly Simcoe at the beginning of the boil to get a lot of bitterness from the 12% alpha acids that it usually has. And I've also then used it in dry hopping, but in combination with other hops. What I'm getting from this is just totally different. So right in the back of it, there's a very mild, mellow herbal element. Doesn't pervade into the front of the juiciness that's going on. There is an element of juiciness to this. I'm guessing the barley is a very lightly killed barley variety that is it's light in complexion, and so we get a different level of sweetness going on in the malt grain, in balance with the Simcoe hops. Is the first thing. Drinkability is perfect. It's really bang on medium. I get bits of lightly acidic pineapple, fresh pineapple. I'm getting I tell you what I am getting a kind of an apricot feel to this, like a fleshy apricot. And I think as soon as I said that word out loud, the apricot, just immediately my mind said that's the flavor you're getting. So I was struggling because it's not overly like stone fruit, but there is that kind of element of stone fruit to it. Got this fabulous beer hot glass, which I absolutely love. Just take a few more sips before I think about what this flavor of this beer is. This brewery is obviously focusing on light and refreshing, as opposed to West Coast old school dank and bitterness and all that in some of their beers. I was expecting this to have a decent backbone of bitterness, but in actual fact it has nearly the opposite of that. The level of bitterness is a bit piney, a bit herbal, a bit fruity, but not too tropical. Excuse me. There's a small amount of bitterness to this beer. I'm wondering if they didn't put Simcoe in the boil at 60 minutes, which would be interesting, because I always have, and I just supposed that everyone else would as well. And maybe I can find out this later on and maybe post it somewhere in this video, up, down, left, right, somewhere in the video of when the hops came in. If I can, I will. I'm thinking there's not too much bitterness in this at all, really. So it's sort of counterintuitive to what my mind tells me Simcoe does, which is this really sort of dank, resinous, piney bit, and then other bits attached to it. Whereas I've got none of that dank, resinous, piney bit, and I've got a light herbal, perhaps a tiny bit floral, focusing more on apricots and herbal, mild. I'd say grapefruit. There's a tiny bit of fruit bitterness to it, but it's not bitterness that you perceive from bittering in hops, which is kind of bizarre to mention. But yeah, that's the way I get this beer. It's a little bit of pineapple-y, not very tropical, to be honest. Just a very nice beer that's sort of confused me a bit. Very enjoyable, very enjoyable indeed. 6%, hides the 6% very well. I would have said this was, I probably would have guessed this is around the 5 or 6% in fairness, but it doesn't in any way feel hot. There's no hot burn, there's no astringency, there's no high levels of acidity in the beer. The head doesn't hold for as long as I'd like, but as soon as you swirl it, it comes straight back, which is really nice. It's more like it is like kind of like I wonder, is the yeast anything to do with this? Actually, I didn't think about that. I might look up Sanders WHC yeast. I've not used Sanders yeast in any of my home brews, so I couldn't say. But it doesn't feel very clean. It feels like there might be esters going on in there, but I just can't really work out which is which and what's going on. But yeah, really nice beer. Took me by surprise, the flavours in it. I would have preferred a tiny bit more detail on the can, just to know what, I'd love to know what barley was used in there so that I can really understand how they got to the flavours. I'd love to know when the hops were added. Like, I know most brewers all over just don't tell you when, you know, they might say it's got X amount of hops per litre in the dry hop, and it tells you which ones. Why not tell us what hops are put in and when they were put in precisely? All it is a tiny bit more print under there for the beer nerds like myself. But anyway, I'm thoroughly enjoying this beer. It shares a very slight similarity to a new hop, Strata. Now Strata, now I've got less in here, I can take a bigger whiff. Actually, I'm just gonna see now. Strata is famed as being one of these hops that has a little bit of like a cannabis resin, sort of like a very bright, how do I explain that? A very fresh, earthy, gardeny sort of plant-like aroma that comes off of it, but it's very sort of, this shares similarities to that, and I'm so confused because it's Simcoe hops and I just did not expect that from Simcoe hops. Anyway, that's just an afterthought. I like this beer. If you see it, pick it up. That's my view on this brew. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to drink this beer and then get on to the next one. So slant your cheers. Goodbye. It's on to the next one. Bye.